now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. I was watching a Mr. Superboy video the other day, and he was talking about this Doom and Gloom TV. Now, this Doom and Gloom TV he's been talking about is all of these negative images of black people that seem to be the primary focus of mainstream media today. Now, I myself have been deeply disappointed and extremely disgusted by many of the negative images that are presented in media. And I know where he's coming from when he talks about how all we see these days are drug dealers on shows like Power, or we see shady music types on shows like Empire, or we see a lot of these other people who play mostly criminals and drug dealers. And this seems like it's the only pictures we see of black people in media are these stereotypes that show us as poor, miserable, and downtrodden. Now, the reason why we continue to see so much Doom and Gloom TV is because of a point I've made in many of my videos. Those who control the money control the media, and those who control the media control the narrative. And that's been the big problem with the media ever since the late 70s and early 80s, when we started to see more black images in media. Because if these whites go out here and finance the media, then they're going to make media that fits their narrative. Moreover, many of these whites own most of the media platforms, and because they own most of the media platforms, that is the reason why we see so many negative images, because they are the ones who own the platforms, they are the ones who finance the media, and they are the ones who go out here and push the images of black people they feel comfortable with. So the big problem we have as a people is we keep depending on their media platforms to push and promote our image. And that is one of the greatest mistakes we as a people have made as a collective, is looking to depend on the so-called dominant to push and promote our image, because the only images that the white supremacist wants to push are the same images and media that he has been pushing regarding the black image ever since the dark days of the antebellum South. Now, in the dark days of the antebellum South, your white racist would go out of their way to exaggerate the black male and black female image to project the worst stereotypes regarding black people. And in their eyes, all we are big black brutes, mammies, minstrels, and other assorted stereotypes. And these are the images they feel comfortable with seeing black people portray. Now, our problem is, as a people, we keep going out here accepting these roles, and even worse, we have a group of people who go out here and produce this kind of content. Now, back in the days of the 1970s, during the blaxploitation era, most of those films were made primarily by whites. But these days, in the 21st century blaxploitation as I see it, we have a lot of black people producing this content. And because we have black people producing this content, breathing brand new life into these old stereotypes, what is happening is that these white supremacists use these black people, like your Lee Daniels and your Tyler Perry, as proxies to push their racist narratives and distribute it on their platforms. So this is how they avoid having to deal with the label of being racist. They go out here, they put black faces in front of their media, like your Lee Daniels, like your Tyler Perry, like your Ava DuVernay. They go out here, find themselves a black face to represent the kind of stereotypes they want passively, and then aggressively push that because they say, because it's made by a black director, oh, this isn't racist at all. However, they are slipping this through, and as they slip it through, they go out here and get entertained by showing you the worst image of black people, all the while they're sitting there having their fun at our expense, watching us degrade ourselves and watching a black person push and promote this kind of content on their platforms. And that is the ultimate thing as related to this media, is the only type of media they are going to push on their platforms is media that presents the worst image of ourselves. And they'll go out here and find themselves some buck dancing, bojangling, step and fetch it minstrels to go out here and push these types of narratives the same way they did in the 1930s with people like your Step and Fetch It, people like your Hattie McDaniel, and people like your Bill Bojangles Robinson. And your black Hollywood is chock full of Step and Fetch It's, Hattie McDaniels, and Bill Bojangles Robinsons looking to tap dance for the white man and provide him with the entertainment that presents his image of black to the world. That's what he wants to see on his platforms. But in this internet age, we as a people have new black media, and we need to start using new black media the way I am right now when I'm creating on this SJS Direct Publishing imprint, to start creating counter-programming to deal with this whole new age propaganda. Because what this media is designed to do is program your mind with ideas, and it's designed to program you to believe a certain idea about yourself. So this media is out here, and it is out here deliberately to present you with a negative image of self, and it is designed to make you believe that the only thing you can be is a drug dealer, the only thing you can be is a thug, the only thing you can be is a baby mama, because these are the images of black that your white racists find to be comfortable with. And what black people also need to understand is that your white racist isn't just some southern conservative. They're also this leftist in California who goes out here and pushes this material because this is the black they feel comfortable with, because they want to see that black man and that black woman at the bottom of the world in order to feel comfortable at their place at the top, because they are insecure about seeing a black man go out here and be on the same level as they are, and they are afraid to see a black man out here going out here and being presented as a person who is out to lead. This is one of the reasons why I believe Netflix canceled Luke Cage, because they could not stand the idea of, one, a black show with a black producer presenting a positive image of black manhood being dominating their crashing servers, and two, this show showing us that people actually want to see something like this, or even worse, in their eyes, to aspire to be like Luke Cage and be a leader in the community and be somebody who's going to protect their community. They don't like that kind of content, so that's why they will push shows like your Scandals, shows like your Empires, shows like your Powers, and shows like your Upshaws, and shows like your Blackish. That's the kind of black people they want to see on their platforms, and that's the type of content they want to see, because they want to program the idea in our minds that we are less than, we can only do certain things in life, and the whole thing is we have to counter-program ourselves, and the way you counter-program yourself is with new black media. Now, new black media is the type of media that is produced by black people to present positive images of black people to the world and show people all over the world that black people can go out here and do great things and show you a larger part of life. That is what I'm doing right now on the SJS Direct imprint, and when the titles I produce, because I saw with this media way back when I was 17 years old in 1991 that this media was going in a bad turn. When I saw the rise of the NWA, and I said that I really needed to go out here and start working on creating that positive media, because I saw the legacy of Bill Cosby and many others out here that was going to be torn down, because I could see it with the rise of the NWA back in the early 90s, and I could see where they wanted to take us in that direction. They want to take us back to that era of the late 70s and the 80s, where all you see are hoods, thugs, criminals, and that's where we are right now. And we were taken on that road again once that it went mainstream with Denzel and Halle winning the Oscars, and ever since then, the black media has been nothing but darkness, doom and gloom, and it's been nothing but a sewer by the content produced by these white producers and these black bootlicks like your Lee Daniels, your Tyler Perrys, your Ava DuVernays, and these bootleg black entertainers who will do anything to get some crumbs from the slave master's table. So when I look at most of this content that's being produced, the only thing we can do as a people is go out here and start creating our own media the way I create media on my SJS Direct imprint. And on that platform, I show you different aspects of the black community. I show you the black-owned businesses. I show you different cultures in the black community, like the black goth subculture. I show you different stories like black fantasy and black science fiction. And these aren't stories that your mainstream media is going to touch. Now, your mainstream media, they know that these kind of stories are out there, and they don't want to push these types of media on their platforms. And they don't want to push this type of media on their platforms because it does not fit the narrative they want to push for black people. And I ran into that way back in the 90s when I first started to do queries for my book, The Changing Soul, the first John Haynes story. And I ran into so much resistance from these mainstream publishers as related to that book, because they did not want to see a story that featured a black man who was college educated and looking to turn his life around. And after I did that book, I remember in 2005, 2006, I did another book, a Cassandra Cookbook, A Recipe for Success. And that book, again, was about two black-owned businesses doing a business deal. And I submitted that book to numerous publishers and literary agents. And a lot of them, while they expressed interest, they turned it down. And the main reason why they turned it down was because they saw that I had presented this down-low black male character as a villain. So many of these companies, they don't want that kind of content because it does not fit their narrative. And when it came down to A Recipe for Success, the whole idea of the down-low black man being a bad guy was something that these white women and these alphabet types did not want to see, because in their world, they wanted to see the down-low guy be the hero of the story. Now, I've also run into resistance when I would go out here and send out screenplays. I remember when I sent out screenplays to screenplay contests, like my first screenplay, All About Maryland. And while that screenplay got a lot of positive feedback from viewers, even including the president of my own college and even some white readers, the Hollywood types did not like it because the white girl was seen as a bad guy and had done something heinous to the Maryland character who was black. And I remember in one screenplay notes that I got, they stated that they implied that the character was black, and I clearly stated that the character was a black character and that the character was in a black sitcom, but they wanted to go out here and put their own narrative on the story. And this is one of the reasons why I have such disdain for Hollywood, because your Hollywood does not want to go out here and promote the stories that present the truth regarding us. No, they like to go out here and push the narratives they feel comfortable with as related to the black image. And they know that there are screenwriters like myself that are out here who are writing the kind of stories that show you a rich diverseness as related to the black experience, but they don't want to push those kind of stories because that doesn't fit their narrative for what they want to see as black. And the only kind of black they want to see are these thugs, these gangsters, these hood rats, these baby mamas. This is what makes many of your racists in Hollywood feel comfortable. And the only, way to counter-program that is by us creating our own media, the same way that your Oscar Michaud created his own black media back in the 1930s. Now, your Oscar Michaud back in the 1930s, he saw all of these minstrel images, and he went out here and financed his own films. Same thing with Melvin Van Peebles, same thing with Spike Lee, same thing with Robert Townsend, same thing with Bill Duke, same thing with the Hudlin brothers, and any type of black media that presents us in a positive black light was media we financed ourselves and media we presented to the public ourselves. And after seeing how the publishing industry and Hollywood were run, this is one of the reasons why I went out here and put my own money up front on things like when I first did the Cassandra Cookbook and ISIS through a POD company, and then later on, so I could get more creative control, I then started my own SJS Direct imprint, because the only way we get positive stories about the black experience and rich stories that present the diversity of the black community is if we produce it ourselves, and that's the only way we're going to get those types of stories, and that's the only way we're going to counter-program all the doom and gloom, and that's the only way we're going to be able to push back against the negativity. Because when the whole thing is, we have to understand that we cannot expect the so-called dominant to go out here and present our image, because the so-called dominant does not see us as positive in any way, shape, or form. They don't see us as human beings. They, in some cases, they don't respect us as human beings. And the only type of images they want to see are the images, again, of a thug, which is a Madison Avenue and Hollywood social construct that they created when they hijacked rap and hip-hop. They only want to see dope dealers, again, from movies like Superfly, which was a film made to trick black men into thinking that selling drugs was a viable option, because the whole thing was that many black men were coming home from Vietnam and they weren't finding any jobs because the job market was still discriminating against them. So they pushed these type of narratives towards us because they want us to see us ourselves in those kind of roles. Same thing with these other movies with the pimps and the hustlers. All this stuff is designed to program you to think less of yourself. And this is something I learned way back 25 years ago, when I remember one of my family members had this novel called Losing Absalom. And I said to myself, why is every story that comes out of the mainstream always presenting us in a negative light? Because at the end of the Losing Absalom book, the son winds up dead. And I said to myself, every book I read, from Richard Wright to all of these other black authors, with the exception of Invisible Man, the black man always winds up dead. Moreover, you always see these stories that always present black people in a negative light or as downtrodden slaves, always getting critical acclaim. Like for example, your Color Purple by Alice Walker That book got a National Book Award and was praised and made into an Oscar-nominated movie. And again, that's the kind of brainwashing that the mainstream media does, is it only praises black people in the worst light, and then because we want white validation, what we do is we try to emulate this dysfunction. And that's what happened with The Color Purple, which again was just a misandristic piece of propaganda. And it also happened with Monsters Ball, where your Halle Berry, one of the black women who was seen as an icon at the time, then took on the role of Letitia Musgrove, given an Oscar, and then that ever since then we have seen nothing more than perversion and debauchery coming from our sisters, and that's all because they want that white validation and approval. And because Halle got an Oscar, they believe that this type of being this type of black woman is normal, and that's why we see all that ratchetness in our community, because these forms of media, again, this type of media from the mainstream is about presenting us in a negative light, and then we emulate it. And that's one of the reasons why they have such hatred for Bill Cosby, because when Bill Cosby came along and gave us The Cosby Show, it started to push back on these narratives they have for us. And then after that, we started to see more blacks out here like Robert Townsend and the Hudlin brothers and Bill Duke and many others making films, and that created a golden age where we saw positive images of black people. But it's always been black people financing this type of media, and the reason why we finance this kind of media is because we understand that in order to protect our image, we have to go out here and make our own media to be able to push back on this propaganda that your children are being bombarded with. And the whole thing is, in order to really deal with this media, you got to turn it off. And that's what I did for the last decade or so. I turned this stuff off because this stuff is poison to a black mind. And this kind of media, if you feed yourself too much of this media, you'll start believing that you're a thug. You'll start believing all you can be is a baby mama, and you'll start thinking that you're a criminal. But if you feed yourself healthy black media, and there is a lot of healthy black media on platforms like my SJS Direct imprint and places like Concrete Comics, which creates some fantastic comics, and many other black media platforms that I have been to. I mean, so much great black media is out here. And if you feed yourself a healthy diet of healthy black media, you will be able to counter program this filth and this propaganda, this anti-black racism that is in front of us, which promotes the worst images of black people, promotes the worst images of black women, and is now even pushing to effeminize the black man. This type of media, you have to not feed yourself this stuff, because if you feed yourself a diet of this stuff, it will destroy your mind. And that was something I learned back in the 90s, and that's what made me walk away from shows like your Jerry Springers and your Maury Povages, is because this type of stuff, when you feed your mind this stuff, it will do damage to your mind and have you thinking that dysfunction is normal, but dysfunction is not normal. And this type of content was not made for us. It was made by the white supremacist to represent what he wants to see regarding us. And that's why it's important for us to go to platforms like YouTube and go out here and watch positive content. And it's important for us to go out here and pick up positive content from publishers like myself on the SJS Direct imprint and other black publishers, because what you feed your mind is going to be what you're going to present to the world. And I thank God I was fed a lot of positive media by my parents, and I was fed a lot of positive media, and that had me going out looking for more positive media, because the positive stuff is out there, but you have to go out here and look for it. They're going to put the rat poison in front of you, and if you watch the rat poison, you will get poisoned, and you will wind up doing harm to yourself and harm to others. But that media is not who we are. that media is what these white racists want us to see of ourselves. And the only way they can get us to see that as our image is if we turn it on. And the whole thing is we have to start turning it off and start turning on new black media. Because if we turn on new black media, we can start to see that richer picture of ourselves, that true picture of who we are, and see what we really can be. And that's one of the things I learned back in the 90s from Bill Cosby and many of the people out here who made a lot of great black films and TV shows. And that's what I tried to build on with my own publishing imprint, because I understand that we don't have to have a world of doom and gloom. We can go out here and have a world of hope, but we have to go out here and create that world and stop buying into their ideas and their platforms and their media. Now, if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction, which features a diverse array of the black experience and black culture, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, and books like The Thetas and A Recipe for Success, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella. Discover the dark side of love in this goth and lovely romance with Spinsterella. Get Spinsterella in paperback and e-readers at your favorite online bookseller today.